There's something that happens during a spiritual awakening that few talk about, but almost everyone experiences. You go through a spiritual awakening, you do the deep work, face your shadows, open your heart, and yet a feeling persists. It's like you know you've healed, at least at a deep level, but you don't feel the freedom you expected. Your thoughts still loop, your emotions still repeat the past. And no matter how much healing you've done, something still feels unresolved. So what's really going on? Most people assume they need more healing, more releasing, more work. Most spiritually awakened people remain stuck for one reason only, and almost no one is talking about it. It's subtle. It disguises itself as something normal, and it keeps you trapped in an invisible loop where healing feels never-ending, even though you've already done more than enough. If you've ever felt lighter on the inside, but your mind still tells you you're not there yet, this is for you. Because what's keeping you in limbo isn't your energy, it's your awareness. And once you understand this one shift, you won't just feel healed. You'll start living like it, faster than you think, deeper than you imagined. There's a moment in every spiritual awakening experience when progress stops feeling like progress. You've read the books, watched videos, done the healing sessions, sat through the meditations, cried through the journaling, and yet the same emotions keep resurfacing. It feels like you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but something still doesn't shift. The energy feels lighter, sure, but the inner world is still noisy, still stuck. And that contradiction is where most people begin to question everything. You may find yourself asking, why do I still feel pain if I've already healed so much? That question alone can trigger frustration, guilt, or even shame. The mind wants to solve it logically, but healing doesn't follow a straight line. It's layered. What you're feeling now might not be old trauma reactivating, but the residue of past patterns still echoing in your body and thoughts. It's a strange place to be in, because you're no longer the version of yourself who was deeply wounded, but you haven't fully stepped into the freedom your soul has already created. It's here, right in this in-between space, that something powerful often happens. In a quiet moment, after trying everything and still feeling that inner weight, a realization surfaces. Not from logic, not from books, but from a deeper wisdom within. You're not broken, you're languishing. And this hits differently, because it's not telling you to fix more. It's telling you to notice what's already been fixed, but not yet lived. Languishing is that invisible state where the quantum self has already healed, but the human self hasn't caught up. It's when the body still reacts from old fears, even though the soul has already released them. Many spiritual people get stuck here because they mistake this delay for failure. So they go back into healing mode, searching for a wound that no longer exists, instead of turning attention to what has shifted and just needs to be embodied. And this is where the deeper conflict begins, not between you and your past, but between your healing and your awareness of it. You start questioning your spiritual purpose, wondering if the awakening was real at all. But what if this discomfort isn't a setback? What if it's a sign that something deeper is asking to be recognized, not as another problem to solve, but as a transformation already waiting to be claimed? Most people assume that if they still feel stuck, it means they haven't healed enough. But that is not always true. There's a difference between being emotionally wounded and being energetically misaligned. Languishing is that gray area no one talks about, a state where the deep spiritual healing has already occurred, but your thoughts, habits, and emotions haven't caught up yet. It's not about doing more. It's about recognizing where you already are. Think of it like updating your phone. The software has already been installed, but if the screen is frozen, it doesn't feel like anything has changed. Spiritually, this happens when the quantum self, the part of you beyond time and space, has already shifted, but your human self is still reacting from outdated mental and emotional patterns. This isn't failure. It's just part of the natural delay between energetic transformation and physical integration. Many people in their spiritual awakening experience get trapped here without realizing it. They go back into fixing mode, thinking more healing is needed. But sometimes healing is already complete at a deep level. What's missing is embodiment, letting the mind and body catch up to the frequency of the soul. That's the real challenge of spiritual evolution. This is why it's so important to understand the difference between pain that still needs healing and patterns that simply need rewiring. The energy might already be free, but the nervous system might still be on high alert. Thoughts like, "I'm not ready" or "something is still wrong" become automatic, even when they no longer reflect your truth. This is the invisible barrier that keeps people looping. If you don't recognize that you're languishing, you'll keep treating yourself as broken, when in truth, you're just in the phase where your awareness needs to realign with your progress. That's why so many on the path of spiritual awakening feel frustrated even after years of spiritual work. But once you start identifying this state, everything begins to shift, not because you did something different, but because you finally saw yourself differently. To understand why healing can feel delayed, you need to look at the two versions of you that coexist. There's the human self, logical, emotional, time-bound, and then there's the quantum self, non-linear, timeless, pure spiritual energy. Both are real, but they operate at different speeds. The quantum self transforms instantly. The human self takes the long road. This is why spiritual awakening often feels like remembering who you already were. When a breakthrough happens on an energetic level, your quantum self embraces it immediately. That part of you doesn't question, doubt, or resist. It simply shifts. But your human self, shaped by years of experience, memory, and identity, doesn't move that fast. It still runs old emotional software. That's where the trap begins. The spiritual energy has already evolved, but the nervous system hasn't updated yet. Imagine your quantum self as the architect and your human self as the construction crew. The blueprint is already drawn, but the physical world takes time to build. That's why, during spiritual awakening, you can feel inner peace and confusion at the same time. One part of you knows everything is okay, but the other is still processing the past. Many people fall into frustration here because they expect instant results across all levels. They think that if they've had a deep realization or spiritual connection, their behavior and emotions should automatically reflect it. But the human self needs repetition, care, and consistency. It's not a flaw, it's just the nature of human transformation. Healing is quantum, integration is human. This is where most people misinterpret their spiritual awakening experience. They judge their progress based on emotional residue, not energetic reality. But if you learn to see your quantum self as the compass, always pointing forward, you will begin to trust the journey of the human self more deeply. And this trust changes everything, especially when you realize that the next step isn't always about effort, but about alignment. When the quantum self shifts, the energy moves instantly, but the brain needs rewiring. The human mind is a machine for creating patterns. It repeats what it knows, even if what it knows no longer serves you. After a spiritual awakening, you may still hear the same thoughts. "I'm not enough. I always get hurt. I'll never change." These are not truths, they're habits. Habits that need to be interrupted. Neural pathways strengthen with repetition. That means if you keep thinking the same fear-based thoughts, the brain will keep reinforcing them, regardless of your energetic progress. This is why some people feel stuck even after deep healing. The subconscious mind is still running old scripts, keeping you emotionally tied to a story you've already outgrown. That's not resistance. It's simply a lack of new input. Rewiring the brain isn't about positive thinking. It's about focused attention. When you become aware of a recurring limiting thought, pause and redirect it. If your mind says, "I'm still broken," try replacing it with, "My energy has already shifted and my body is adjusting." Simple reframes like that, practiced consistently, create new mental grooves that match your spiritual evolution. There are practical tools to help here. Meditation with visualization and even handwriting affirmations can signal the brain to let go of old patterns. Some people also benefit from reading specific books, such as Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by author Joe Dispenza, or from working with modalities such as neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. The key is not the method, but consistency. Choose practices that you most identify with and apply them day after day. That way, you're training your brain to reach your soul. Once you realize your mind is just lagging behind your transformation, not blocking it, you'll stop fighting your thoughts and start guiding them. That's when your healing begins to take root in your everyday life. And when that happens, you'll begin to notice something strange. Even though you feel stuck, something deeper has already moved on. One of the most confusing stages of spiritual awakening is feeling stuck after doing all the work. You've released the trauma, opened your heart, aligned your energy, but emotionally, something still feels heavy. That can make you question whether the healing even worked. The truth is, it probably did. What you're feeling is not the absence of healing, but the presence of unprocessed mental loops. It's easy to forget that thoughts alone can re-trigger old states. You might feel a deep sense of spiritual energy and inner peace, and yet find yourself replaying fears like, "What if this doesn't last?" Or, "What if I fall back again?" That mental tension creates dissonance. Energetically, you've moved forward, but mentally, you're still carrying a backup copy of your old identity, and that conflict creates the illusion that you're stuck. This stage is where many give up or start over. They assume the healing wasn't deep enough. But in reality, it's the perspective that needs to evolve. You're not failing, you're adjusting. You're beginning to witness how spiritual evolution is not just about healing pain, but about shifting how you relate to your healed self. That is subtle, but it's powerful. For example, think of someone who has overcome their fear of public speaking through deep healing work. They no longer feel the panic in their chest, but they still hear a mental voice saying, "You're going to mess this up." The fear is gone, but the habit of thinking based on fear remains. This is the kind of friction that most spiritual people misinterpret. It's not a blockage, it's a transition. Once you see this clearly, you realize that feeling stuck isn't a problem. It's a signal. It means your energy has already shifted and your awareness is being invited to follow. And that shift in awareness is what opens the next phase, where your healing becomes real not just in your heart, but in your thoughts, your habits, and your entire way of being. Energy follows awareness. So where your focus goes, energy flows. It sounds simple, but during a spiritual awakening, this principle becomes everything. If your awareness remains focused on what's missing, what's broken, or what didn't work, those are the areas that keep expanding. Even if you've already healed, constantly revisiting the pain can reanimate it. You're not regressing, you're just unintentionally energizing the past. Think about it. You've likely had moments where you felt calm, clear, even free. But maybe an hour later, your mind spiraled into self-doubt, just because your awareness shifted. Instead of staying anchored in your spiritual wisdom and healed state, attention wandered back to the old story. And the more you engage that story, the more real it feels, whether it's still true or not. To truly embody spiritual evolution, your awareness has to become intentional. If you focus on your quantum self, the part of you that already knows, already healed, already aligned, you start to build emotional momentum toward integration. Practices such as visualization, breathing, or even stopping and simply asking, What am I focusing on now? Can help bring you back to the center. As I said before, it's not about forcing, it's about focus, direction. Every time you find yourself entering a cycle of fear or limitation, try to see it not as a failure, but as an opportunity for redirection. Try to see these moments as being at a fork in the road. One path leads to your old self, the other to your awakened self. You choose which one becomes real by where you place your attention. That's the subtlety and the power of this practice. Over time, this shift in awareness rewires more than your thoughts. It recalibrates your entire vibration. And from there, everything begins to align: your emotions, your decisions, your outer reality. That's the bridge between inner healing and outer transformation. And when that bridge is activated, something else becomes possible, something that breaks the cycle of languishing completely. Languishing doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're paused between who you were and who you're becoming. This process to escape languishing consists of 3 steps. Everything starts with honesty. The first step is to face the wound. That means stop bypassing, stop numbing, and look directly at what still hurts. Not to relive it, but to acknowledge it with clarity. When you bring intention to the pain, healing isn't just possible, it becomes inevitable. The second step is to do the work. This part isn't glamorous, but it's where the shift truly begins. Choose the methods that resonate with you: release, energy healing, coaching, breathwork, journaling, or simply movement that reconnects you to your body. The goal here is to move energy, not just think about it. These practices seek to pull you into presence. The third step is to search for your quantum self. This is the part that most people ignore. Here, you should practice being the version of you that has already healed. Visualize your spiritual energy as a whole, your expansive aura, your calm nervous system. Talk to yourself as if you were already there. This is more than imagination. It's alignment training, and it works faster than most people think. To embody your quantum self, daily rituals help. Try setting aside 5 minutes of your day to practice intentional breathing, focusing on your heart space, or even using mantras such as, "I am already whole. My energy guides my reality." These micro-alignments create macro changes. Each time you move through this 3-step process, your awareness sharpens and your energy stabilizes. You stop chasing healing and start living it. And as that embodiment deepens, something subtle but powerful occurs. The illusion of being stuck begins to dissolve. And what emerges is a very different kind of life experience, one where peace doesn't feel like an effort, but a baseline. The deepest shifts are often silent. You don't always realize you've changed until you respond differently to something that used to trigger you. That's the power of true integration. It sneaks in quietly, and yet, when you look back, you see just how far you've come. That's what spiritual awakening feels like. If you're in a phase where things feel still, don't assume you've stopped growing. Stillness is part of the awakening process. It's where the soul refines itself and the human self recalibrates. Just because nothing big is happening on the surface doesn't mean transformation isn't unfolding underneath. Some of the most meaningful shifts happen in those silent, in-between spaces. From this realization, you begin to trust your inner guidance more. You stop measuring your growth by what others can see, and you start honoring the stages of awakening that don't look impressive from the outside, but are radically transformative within. That's when you truly reclaim your spiritual purpose. Because the truth is, the quantum self is always ahead, already healed, already expanded. Your job is to meet that version of you with presence and intention. And when you do this, a new way of being begins to emerge, quietly but undeniably. All you need is presence. And perhaps, for the first time, it's not a question of trying harder, but of seeing yourself more clearly. So the question that remains is, What would change in your life if you stopped treating yourself like a project to be fixed and started living like someone who is already free? Just think about it. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video with others so they can benefit from this message. And don't forget to leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, reflections, and experiences. Thanks again for watching and for joining me. Take care and see you soon.